Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon, a retired NYPD sergeant, and with me tonight, straight out of Brooklyn, retired NYPD detective Phil Grimaldi. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing pretty good, Billy, and I'm interested to get into the conversation on no-knock warrants.
Well, tonight we have almost a famous guy,
I don't know about that.
NYPD Sergeant Pat Russo, who also runs the New York City Kids and Boxing Program, which is
Cops
one of the great
kids.
Cops and Kids Boxing Program, which is one of the best programs for kids throughout New York City. Keeps kids off the street, keeps kids out of trouble. And Pat not only can talk the talk, he can walk the walk. I heard he has a pretty mean left hook too, and he teaches these kids how to throw it. So folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. We'll be back in 1 second.
It's a show with two retired detectives that were in the thick of New York crime, fast and hectic. They got some stories and some jokes, even an interview with the most popular folks. Off the cuff, off the cuff. One episode just ain't enough. Get a little laughter and an interview too. Maybe the best thing you can do.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Tonight, we're going to talk about, if you haven't been following the news, there was a incident in Minneapolis where the Minneapolis police SWAT team did what's known as a no-knock warrant. They hit an apartment, and in regards to this no-knock warrant, they had the keys to the front door. They opened the front door. They announced, they screamed out, police, search warrant, search warrant. They went in, and a young man, 22 years old, Amir Locke, was sleeping on a couch. He had a blanket covering himself. But they saw a gun emerge from underneath the blanket, and one of the officers fired 3 shots and killed Amir Locke. I want to just play, before we get into it, and before I introduce Pat Russo, happens to be an expert on no-knock warrants. He did a number of them and taught how to apply for no-knock warrants when he was on the NYPD. I'm going to play a little bit of the body cam video from the Minneapolis police, and we'll take a look at this. This has been all over the news, and to talk about a city that's had their share of protests and their share of police incidents, it's Minneapolis. So let me just put this, we'll play this on the screen.
Team officer shot and killed a 22-year-old black man during a no-knock warrant raid on the apartment where he was staying. Tensions have been high in the city since the police killing of George Floyd, and with 3 former officers now on federal trial in that case, the governor is activating National Guard troops in case protests turn violent. Here's Jennifer Merrily of our
Billy, that volume's a little low.
WCCO.
Amir Locke was asleep just before 7 a.m. Wednesday when a Minneapolis SWAT team entered the apartment with their guns drawn. In police body camera video, 22-year-old Locke is seen lying on the couch wrapped in a blanket. A gun is visible in Locke's.
So you can see that he has a gun in his right hand, and that's what the officers were screaming, show me your hands, show me your hands. And that's what they reacted to, that gun that emerged from underneath that blanket.
Hand just before officers opened fire, only about 9 seconds after entering the apartment.
I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen too many times.
Today, Locke's parents are mourning their loss.
I should be able to tell my son that I love you, and he says I love you too.
The use of no-knock warrants came under fire in 2020 following the shooting death of Breonna Taylor by police in Kentucky. That prompted Minnesota legislators to tighten restrictions on the tactic to, quote, limit the likelihood of bad outcomes. In the years since the policy change, Minneapolis police say the number of no-knock raids dropped to 90 from a previous average of nearly 140 a year. Locke was not listed on the original search warrant and has no known connection to the crime.
Both a no-knock and a knock search warrant were obtained so that the SWAT team could assess the circumstances and make the best possible decision about.
So there you have it, Pat. A no-knock warrant resulted in the shooting of this young man who was not the target of the warrant. Pat, you want to explain to our audience what and why the police would apply for a no-knock search warrant?
Well, and we really don't have a lot of information because we don't have the application for a search warrant. The application for the search warrant would reveal the PC, the probable cause that led the judge to allow them to go into this apartment and conduct a no-knock search warrant. And it's obvious it was one thing that they did reveal, that it was a homicide investigation. So if it's a homicide investigation, obvious that it would be a dangerous situation, which is the reason that he would grant the no-knock warrant as opposed to a regular search warrant.
You know, Pat, I seem to remember from my teaching days, it was the exceptions to a warrant were the 3 E's, and it was evidence, endanger, or escape. So if the person could destroy evidence, he could endanger the officers, or could escape. Those were the 3 reasons for a potential no-knock search warrant. Is that not correct?
That's 100% correct. And most of the search warrants that we did it on patrol, were narcotics search warrants. And there was always a chance of weapons being in the location. And obvious, if we knocked on the door and announced ourselves, you know, the drugs would be destroyed. The drugs would be flushed down the toilet or thrown out the window.
You know, on another, this has everything to do with search warrants also. I was part of the team in Manhattan North Homicide that we reinvestigated the search warrant that resulted in the death of Alberta Sproul. I don't know if you're familiar with that case.
I know it was bad.
Alberta Sproul was an elderly woman, and the confidential informant pointed out her apartment to the police as the apartment that there were narcotics and drugs in. Excuse me, narcotics and guns in this apartment. So with that information, they obtained a search warrant. And back then, emergency service, which is the NYPD SWAT team, we don't call it SWAT, we call it emergency service. They threw in a flashbang, which we, you know, as a flash grenade. It's very loud. It shakes the whole building. And it was the wrong apartment. And Alberta Sproul died of a heart attack. So it was a huge snafu, a huge mistake. And from that day on, I don't think emergency service gets the approval to use a flashbang because it has to be approved by the chief of department. So if you think the chief of department is putting his career and everything else on the line to approve a flashbang, there wasn't a single, in the years that I had worked after that, there wasn't a single flashbang approved after that.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I'm in 100% agreement. I'm not sure who the chief of department was at the time. If it was Adam Owen or Esposito, but I 1,000,000% approve of that. I hated the flashbang. I did. Emergency service thought it was a necessary to shock, like a shock and awe type thing, to put them on alert that it's the police coming in, and they could, while they were holding their ears from the concussion, I guess, or the percussion, you could take control of the situation. I hated it. I hated it because most of our search warrants were, we knew what we were dealing with in the location. And I'd really love to get into how we were able to get it approved, the approval for patrol precincts to execute search warrants, because it's very important, I think, to where we're at right now. We know our politicians always have a knee-jerk reaction. This was a tragedy. I'm not sure what this kid's background is, but I know he wasn't this subject. And from what they're telling us, the weapon was a legitimate weapon. The weapon was possessed.
It was registered, and he was a legal firearm.
Right. I'm not sure why he's holding it while he's sleeping. I'm not sure the circumstances, which I think there's DCPI really needs to get some information out before Minneapolis starts to burn. And if the cops are wrong, hey, they got to own up to it. If they were wrong and they killed this person, they got to own it. But we need the community needs the information before they burn down the city. Put the information, get the information out there. Because right now, what they're saying, well, you see the news, they're saying the cops executed another kid. And trust me, those cops went in there, they seen a gun, they feared for their life, and they shot.
Pat, I just want
to be a justified shooting.
Pat, I just want to echo something that you said about the flashbang. Now, I'm sure that, the flashbangs, they disorient anybody that's in that close proximity to that thing when it goes off. And it's done for the safety of the officers that are making the entry. So in certain cases, I agree with you. There may not be an instance or a reason to deploy the flashbang. If it's a 70-year-old woman in the house and they're looking for one subject, that might be a situation where they don't want to deploy it. But, if you're going into a location where there's several gangbangers and you know that there's guns in the apartment, that's probably when something like that would be necessary to deploy. Now, I also want to back up a little bit on when you do the application for search warrant. It's not that easy that everybody thinks it is. You have to develop the information. Then you have to, a lot of times you have an informant and you have to bring the informant in New York. This is how we did it. We would bring the informant down to the district attorney's office. They would actually write up the warrant application. Then you would have to take that informant and go before the judge, and the judge would listen to all of the evidence, listen to the district attorney, listen to the officers, and then that judge has the ability to either sign the warrant and give all the, if you want a no-knock or if there's any exclusions or things that you want added onto it, the judge can make that decision. Now, I've had situations where I had a very credible informant. We knew there were guns in the location. There were guns registered in the location, but the informant was telling us there was also about a dozen illegal guns. And because the informant didn't know the exact number of the building, the judge said, I'm not signing it. We went crazy. We tried to get it done. Turns out that we never got it done. We had brought that informant to the location on 4 or 5 occasions to be certain that it was the apartment. One of the officers went in and shadowed the informant. He pointed out the door. We made him mark the door. There's a lot of things that go into these search warrants.
Phil, let me just say, people don't understand. It is easy to hit the wrong door. It doesn't, people think it's, oh my God, how could you? Most doors in housing projects have no numbers on them.
See, Bill, you're making a good point there. I don't think I wouldn't call it easy to make that mistake. I mean, in my opinion, or what I would do, I would try to make it as exact as possible. But you're making a great point because ESU does the entry a lot of times. So, we do a recon a lot of times and we'll know the exact door. Now, they have to go based on what we're telling them. Sometimes you can get a cell phone picture or something like that. But again, Billy, you're making a really good point. A lot of those doors look exactly alike. They get off the elevator on the wrong floor. They're going, if you say when you get out of the elevator, you go to the right, it's the first door on the right. They're going to hit that door and they get off on the wrong floor by mistake. So it could happen.
No, I used to get one of those Dunkin' Donuts stickers and put it on the right corner of the door.
Yeah, we did stuff like that too, with pieces of paper and stuff like that. But I think more importantly is the actual informant that's working with you. If there is no informant, then you have to, develop the information on your own. My point that I'm trying to make is that these warrants aren't granted on a whim. These warrants, there's a lot of work that goes into them.
It's a high bar. It's a high bar to get over.
Exactly. Great point. Right there. Yeah.
Very difficult. And you know what? It should be. It should
yes,
be.
Absolutely.
This is the most intrusive form of policing that there is, to knock down somebody's door in their castle, in their what we were taught in the police academy. That's the most intrusive form of policing, and
probably the most dangerous too, Pat.
The most dangerous. And believe me, I wish that they could just do away with search warrants, and we didn't have to do them because they're difficult. And Bill, you said something that it's easy to hit the wrong door, but when I taught every patrol precinct how to do it. We were the pilot to do this. And when I taught the patrol cops, now these are patrol cops. These are not narcotics detectives or not or bureau detectives. These are patrol cops that were handpicked by the COs. And what Animal told them is, you better pick to do these search warrants in your command. You better pick the people that are going to make or break your career, because they're going to go out there and they're going to do hard work. You better make sure they're good. So what I used to teach them is, if there's an inkling, there's a chance that it's the wrong door or you don't have enough information, you call it off. It's just paperwork. It's just paperwork. And you need to imagine the night before you hit that search warrant, what you would feel like if you're laying in bed and it's 6 o'clock in the morning and guys come crashing through your door and are going to go through all of your possessions in your home. You got to know that that's the spot you're looking at. And you got to be confident in your ability as an investigator, as a cop, to know you're getting the right spot and the right people. And it worked. It worked. When we did it, we did it in the 7-2. And why it was so successful in the beginning is because that patrol cop knows, if you have a good patrol cop, he's worth his weight in gold, because he knows the community. When we went and we taught housing to do it, and I tell you, housing cops were some of the best cops I ever worked with, because they knew the housing development. They knew the good people were 98% of that community, and you knew you had those 2 apartments that were cancerous, that just destroyed the entire complex because they dealt drugs at them, they dealt guns at them, and they did all illegal activity out of that apartment. So if we have that knee-jerk reaction to this incident in Minneapolis, this tragic incident, and they tell us here in New York we can no longer execute search warrants, that would be a devastating blow.
100%. Pat,
not to me, not to you, but the poorest communities in this city. It would be a devastating blow that I think would be the final nail in our coffin. Because right now, cops need to know that they have the back of the elected officials, and common sense has to prevail.
Yep. Captain Chaos, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Captain Chaos says, salute to Pat Russo. Well, thank you. I don't know if Pat knows who you are,
Thanks.
but Real with Robo, Cannon, that's Detective Sergeant Cannon to you, Real with Robo. Taking away no-knock warrants put the police in danger. I know I've only done hundreds of them. Mistakes may happen, however. Announcing to a career criminal could get them killed. When TF, I guess I know what that means. Are these idiots in charge? Get it? SMFH. I'm not going to repeat what that means. But look, when I would do these search warrants and we were going after a real bad guy, which we did because I was in homicide, we were going after homicide purpose. I would have ESU and we would do a TAC plan. And we would have the whole setup of the apartment. If there were dogs in the apartment, we'd say the dogs are in this room. We think he's got guns in this room. There could be family members in that room. There could be a kid in that room. All of that information would be given to ESU so they didn't go in blindly. And yeah, we wanted, for a situation like that, we wanted a no-knock warrant. We're going after a murderer. Chances are he's got a gun or the gun he used in the murder in that very apartment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point, Billy. And, a lot of work goes into it. And obviously, in this particular case, it turned tragic. And, we have condolences to the family that they lost their son. And I can understand, and I don't want to challenge anything that they're saying on the news. They're obviously grieving. They lost a son. And that kid might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there's circumstances that, they're clear as day on the video. Why did he have a gun? I said to Billy earlier before we went on the air, I have guns. I don't sleep with them under the pillow. I keep them close proximity. But I'm not sleeping with a gun in my hand, so to speak. And then he's in the apartment now. On the news, they said that he was in the apartment of a family member. So he's in the apartment of a family member that could be wanted for a homicide, and he's got a fully loaded gun in his hand. I mean, it's an automatic, it looks like to me. They showed a gun on the news. I don't know if it's the actual gun, but it looked like a high capacity magazine. So, and his hand was on the gun. An officer has to make a split second decision on whether or not he's about to be killed and, use deadly physical force. It all happens in milliseconds. And unfortunately for this young man, he may have thought, I don't know what, but they were in the apartment for about 9 seconds before the shots went off. They announced who they were. They were screaming, show us your hands, show us your hands. There's an old saying that comes into play here. If you comply, you won't die. Maybe he was confused. He was disoriented. I don't know. There was no flashbang. They entered without having to knock down the door. They used the key. So there's circumstances there that need to be investigated, obviously. But the way it looks from the little bit that we know, and it really is a little bit, it's not a lot. We don't know a lot of the details. It does look like it's justified, in my opinion. And it's a tragic, horrible incident that 22-year-old person died in this event, but maybe there's something that we can find out further, and there could be some maybe future training that could be deployed and maybe prevent things like this from happening in the future.
Right.
John Donahue, when did the no-knock warrant become legal to use? As far as I know, it's been legal for as long as they've been doing warrants. However, to get that special circumstance to have it no-knock, a judge has to approve it for the reasons that we were talking about. Evidence and danger, escape, we've known as the 3 E's. And the biggest reason is in danger. If you're going after a real bad guy, you don't want to give him the warning that you're coming through the door. You want to boom the door down. Narcotics does it every single day of the week. And they don't even employ ESU. They do their own search warrants. And they take that battering ram and they boom that door down and they go in there like gangbusters. And there's been tragedies. I believe in the 90s, there was a sergeant from Manhattan North Narcotics that was killed. I believe his name was John McCormick. And I think he was shot and killed by friendly fire in regards to a no-knock search warrant. And so tragedies do happen on both sides of the fence. And to minimize this stuff, we got people like Pat Russo that teach it to the patrol force. And also, in narcotics, I'm sure they're giving training on how to conduct search warrants.
But it's my biggest concern is that we have that knee-jerk reaction and we just say, that's it, there's no more search warrants. Like we did away with stop and frisk. I wasn't crazy when they used stop and frisk as kind of an activity. I thought that was ridiculous. But stop and frisk is an enormous tool that cop needs on patrol for his safety and to take guns off the street. So
100%. And, we're going to talk about that tomorrow night when we have a former Yonkers Police Commissioner, Edmund Hartnett, and we're going to have current Nassau County Police Commissioner, Patrick Ryder. We're going to talk about violent crime across the USA. And Edmund Hartnett wants to talk about stop, question, and frisk and how we somewhat lost that because of a lot of it had to do with the media, too. The media poisoned that procedure by calling it stop and frisk instead of calling it stop, question, and frisk. And they demonized it. And Phil and I have talked about this in the past, that it was overused for a while. They were counting it as an activity check thing on the monthly activity report for cops. And it sort of, a lot of people that shouldn't have been stopped were getting stopped. And it sort of violated the procedure because what we all know, to stop, question, and frisk someone, you need reasonable suspicion. So I think a lot of those pat downs were happening minus reasonable suspicion, and it pissed off the community. And that's why we lost it. Overuse, I think, was why we lost it.
Right. You know what I do with the kids with the boxing program. So I spoke to a couple of the guys, a couple of our boxers who live in Flatbush, in Park Hill, in the Berry houses, 3 kind of dangerous neighborhoods in New York City. And I was speaking to one of our boxers from Park Hill, and when he seen the advertisement, and he said, no knock warrants. He texted me that no knock warrants are a license to kill. So I asked him to watch tonight, and I hope he's watching. But they are a necessary evil to address criminal activity, because what the drug dealers are chameleons. They adapt to what's going on. They know that we're out in the street looking for drugs and guns. So what do? They get the kids in the street, the juveniles, to carry the guns. And the juvenile, when he gets locked up with this new system that we have, they're all out immediately. So they use the houses now as stash houses for the drugs and the guns. If we don't have that ability to go and execute a search warrant, if they take that tool away from us, I'm telling you, the only people that are going to suffer are the people that live in those communities where they're just inundated, they're overrun with drugs and guns. And we need that ability. We can never. It's very easy for a cop to do nothing and get paid and collect a paycheck every 2 weeks. And what I'm afraid of is the atmosphere that's going on. That you instituted a diaphragm law, you instituted the qualified.
They took away qualified immunity.
Qualified indemnity, and cops. When we all came on in the 80s, correct?
Yes.
What was the attitude in the 80s? The attitude was, I'm talking about the veterans that were on the job in the 70s. Their attitude was, let them kill each other and go take a report. And when I drove that veteran cop, because we were young cops, they always put you with a veteran, and they said, slow down, son. Let them kill each other. We'll go take a report. And I said to myself, I didn't take this job to become a report taker. It's a cliche, but I kind of took the job with the all intentions. I'm going to be the guy that makes a difference. And I know you two did, because you did in your career. And I'm seeing, because I'm with the boxing team, the NYPD boxing team every day, and they're losing that love of the job. Right now, what's going on in this country, they're losing that love of the job. If cops go back to the old days to be report takers, we're done as a city. And you're seeing it happen in every major city across this country. So we need, Eric Adams is talking a good game. He needs to follow through now. He needs to follow through, and he needs 100% to get behind the cops. And he needs to go talk to the unions, bring back qualified immunity, get rid of the diaphragm law, at least talk about it. At least the cops got to know that he has their backs. And then you got a great chief of department right now, Kenny Corey. We were sergeants together in the 7-2. So we did this work together. And it was CPOP. Everybody made fun of CPOP. But what came out of CPOP? Because they handpicked a bunch of cops and they put them in a unit and they said, go out there, be responsive to the community. And to be responsive to the community, you got to have every tool that's available to address the problems, especially in crime-plagued communities. If we take it away from them and make it impossible for a cop to do his job, we're done. We're done. We're
Pat, you know something? We totally agree with you. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. If you're not subscribed, please go on the YouTube, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell, give us a thumbs up. If you want to support us, join our Patreon. We have 3 levels. And if you want to join the YouTube family of Police Off the Cuff, go on our YouTube. We have 5 different levels. Join us and you'll be part of the people with the green font in the chat there. And We could use your support with police off the cuff. Some of the things, Pat, that this also leads to, and I agree with you 100%, is you get these crazy city council people, and not just in New York, but they're talking about stopping cops from doing car stops. Could you imagine that, taking away the right or the enforcement authority for a police officer to do a car stop? Where do you think the guns are being transported in? You think they're flying them on magic carpets? No, they're being transported in cars. So if you can't take away the right or the enforcement ability for a cop to pull over a car and then to garner reasonable suspicion and do a search of that car, guns are just going to proliferate more than they are now. And you hear them, we had spoke about the other day when they had that meeting with President Biden. And of course, he and some of the other progressives blamed it on the gun, not the pulling the trigger. It's always the gun's fault, not the perpetrator, because they don't want to put anyone in prison.
Right.
That's all window dressing, Billy. And Pat, I just want to make one quick point about what you said. Yeah, I want to make one quick point about what you said earlier about the no-knock warrants. Now, I spoke with someone that saw the body cam video of the recent shooting of the two police officers, Jason Rivera and Wilbur Moore. And, they announced when they spoke with the mother and the brother of the perpetrator, they announced, it's police officer so-and-so, we want to talk to you. Would you come out of the bedroom? And they started to walk towards the bedroom. The bedroom door flew open and the shots just started flying. So now I'm going to compare that to a warrant where you're announcing a no-knock warrant. If you know someone, now obviously they didn't know that he had a firearm in there. They wouldn't have approached it that way. But I'm just trying to make an analogy that had they not announced who they were and they sneakily went in there and burst into the door and he was laying on the bed, he might not have been able to get to that bazooka, whatever you want to call it. It was a 45 with a 40-round clip, whatever it was. But they, not knowing he had a firearm, they announced themselves. They asked him to come out. They were trying to do a typical, family dispute resolution, and they lost their lives. So there are instances where you cannot get around doing a no-knock warrant. If you know that someone is, wanted for murder, or there's drugs, or there's guns, and it's a 3-time loser that doesn't want to go back to jail, whatever the case may be, you cannot announce your presence and not place yourself in grave danger. And the officers that were just shot and killed, I think that is a testament to that. Even though it's 2 different situations, it wasn't a warrant situation, but they announced themselves. Would you come out of the bedroom? They walked towards the bedroom. The door flew open and the bullets just started flying. They never even had a chance to draw their guns. Whether or not they returned fire is still in question. But I know the first officer, Jason Rivera, never even got his gun out of his holster because he was met with a fuselage of bullets. So
Phil, that's why when you hear these news reporters say only 9 seconds after they entered the apartment, are they kidding?
That's a lifetime in a shootout. Most shootouts are 2.5 seconds, 2 to 3 seconds.
But when they say that only 9 seconds, as if they should have waited till he started shooting them.
Listen, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback all of this stuff. I saw a report. One of the reporters said, "Oh, the gun, his finger wasn't on the trigger of the gun because his finger was on the side of the gun." In that, when they froze the frame, and they said that the gun was pointed down. So the officer needs to wait until the gun is pointed at him, and in a split second, a 100th of a second, he could have a bullet go through his brain. That's not how it works. You're making split-second decisions. Pat, Bill, we've all been in that situation where you have to make that split-second decision, and it's just not easy. It's a difficult one, and unfortunately, it was tragic for that family. But the way it looks like it was justified at this point, to me, anyhow.
Guys, I'm going to play a little bit of this. This is the community responding to the Amir Locke shooting.
Minneapolis needs to wake up and come to realization that we are in trauma.
Pain is palpable among Minneapolis residents outraged over the police killing of Amir Locke, demanding answers about how it could have happened that Locke lost his life during the execution of a search warrant he wasn't even on.
How did 9 seconds of an arrest warrant or a search warrant end up with a man's life?
For members of the community group, the Unity Community Mediation Team that's tried to partner with the Minneapolis Police Department for 2 decades, this news feels all too familiar.
As a young black man myself, I couldn't sleep last night because I seen my nephew, I seen myself when I was younger and I see my young son as he get older. And I ask myself, is this the reality that they gonna have to live?
Locke's family says he lawfully owned a gun with a permit to carry.
Amir was a gun carrying licensed individual. NRA should be excited about that.
And gun rights advocates say this raises alarm since last year was a record year for gun ownership.
So now every day we're entering into a situation where law enforcement officers may encounter somebody who is lawfully armed inside their home. The use of no-knock warrants is counteractive to that right to self-defense.
Caroline Cummings, WCCO 4 News.
So you heard the other side of this, partly the other side of this argument. They also mentioned that other case with Breonna Taylor, and I can't see how that they can mention that when the person she was with started shooting at the cops, and she got struck when they returned fire. I just don't see how that's even a questionable shooting.
She got caught up in the crossfire. Go ahead, Pat.
But that's what my fear is. These are horrific situations. When anyone is killed, it's a horrific situation.
Of course.
But you can't have a knee-jerk reaction and stop the police from take away a very important, a very effective tool to stop crime, to take back blocks and apartments and to get to those recidivist criminals that are cancerous, that are destroying our communities. It's tragic, but there needs to be common sense. Can we do better? Of course, maybe we could do better. But I just don't want that knee-jerk reaction. We made this. We made this. We helped the New York City Police Department, led the way in this country to make this the safest city in America. And we gave it all up. Kind of because I believe people don't understand history. People forget history and you're doomed to repeat it. But we were able to do it through common sense police work, working with the community, identifying that minute percentage of the community that we needed to target and go after, lock them up. But you need right now another thing Eric Adams has to do. He's got to tell these district attorneys, I need a liaison. I need you to work. I need a problem-solving, precision policing district attorney to work with our cops to make sure when we target people that are destroying, people that not we're deciding they're destroying the community, people that the community is deciding. The community is telling that beat cop on the street, that NCO, that this is the guy that's destroying 49th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue. He's getting the kids to go out and deal drugs and run guns, but he doesn't touch anything. He's got everything in his house. We have to have that ability to use that tool of a no-knock search warrant and go and lock them up. We need those tools. Don't take it away, because this is our city, and if we're willing to give it up, then you're going to go back to a police force of report takers. And you know what? I encourage a lot of kids that came through the boxing program are now New York City police officers, including my son. And I'm telling you right now, my son could have came into my business and been and made a nice living, and not take home $1,100 every 2 friggin' weeks to do a job where you're just lambasted by politicians that don't know any better. Yep. So I think it's important, like platforms like this, and I gotta hope that a lot of civilians are watching and they understand cops don't want to go knock down people's doors. It's a lot of work. It's a tremendous amount of, it's a burden. It should be, because it's very intrusive, but back the cops. They want to do what you're asking them to do. Keep our city safe. Did you see today's post? This week, 60%. Crime is up 60%.
Yeah, I saw that.
Year to date, 38%. We're going in the wrong direction. I'm going in the wrong direction. We don't need this tragic incident like the Floyd incident, the Floyd death, to destroy our country and divide us. It's we all
Yeah,
have
you know, Pat, that destroyed policing on a national level, and it's
And-
like
and-
if a surgeon killed someone in California, are all surgeons in the whole country going to be lambasted because someone made a mistake? But that's the way policing is. This guy, and there's not a cop I know that would. Everyone said what Chauvin did was 100% wrong, but that doesn't
Absolutely.
make the whole profession of policing wrong because he did something wrong. You know, guys, we just got to take a quick break. Philly, I just want you to do
Sure.
give our little ad for Joe Murray.
Joe Murray, attorney at law. Have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Do you need a victim's advocate? Well, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he is also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. He literally knows both sides of the fence. His website is jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, or you could email Joe at jmurray-law.com.
Real with Robo. I just want to mention you mentioned in your post that I'll read it right now. Hindsight is 2020. Can we speak about how the criminal could not have done the crime? Then the cops wouldn't have been there at all. Real with Robo. Yeah, you happen to be correct. However, this young man was staying in an apartment apparently that may have, and we don't know all the information, belonged to the subject of this warrant. So his situation was he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we can't say at this point that he's guilty of any wrongdoing whatsoever than, having that gun, even though, and we're told that it was a legal gun, but pulling it out wasn't the smartest thing to do. But as far as criminality, at this point, we don't think he's involved in any criminality. He happened to be in an apartment that potentially, and they're not saying, Minneapolis police aren't saying yet whether that was the apartment of the subject. I think because they apparently hit 3 locations in that complex.
That
So
the warrant was for a person that was wanted for a homicide, and
Right.
they believed they had pretty good information to believe that that person that was wanted was in that location. And listen, there's a lot of conjecture going on. We don't have a lot of the facts yet, but why was he in that apartment? Supposedly it's a relative of his that lives there, or someone. They said it was a family member's apartment. Why is he there with a gun? And I think those are some of the questions that need to be answered. He could be totally innocent. And again, we stressed that already. We all said this is a tragic incident. No 22-year-old kid should lose his life over something like this. And those parents, I can't sympathize with them enough. They lost a 22-year-old son. But, there's going to be a lot of details that are going to come forward in the next few weeks, I'm sure. And a lot of those questions really should be answered. Who was this person? Why was he in the apartment? Why did he have the gun on him? Even though everybody's saying he had the legal right to own that handgun, they're saying he had a carry permit. We don't know that to be true. It could have been a premise permit, a target permit. We really don't know. But even if he had the right to carry that gun, did he have a need to have it with him that night? Was there some reason that he was protecting somebody? Maybe, the person who was wanted for this murder, it could have been some type of a dispute or a fight or something. A lot of things that we don't know. So I think that we're going to have to pay attention to that. And again, Pat, you're making a great point that because of this situation, this incident, it's a tragic incident. We don't know all the details, but now we're going to knee-jerk reaction and just rip away rather the no-knock warrants. And what happens is when you're going to try and arrest somebody, you're going to place officers in danger, like those 2 officers that were killed up in Harlem last week. We have to really think long and hard about that. So I'm sure an intensive investigation is going to be done. Let's get all the facts out there. And like you said in the beginning, Pat, if there's chips that are going to fall in the direction of these guys did something wrong, well, then that's what's going to have to be. If they made a mistake and they did something wrong, they're going to have to deal with that. But they need to have, the local leaders should be calling for calm. Let's wait for the investigation. I mean, we already see from the video, he had a gun in his hand. So that's kind of, leading towards justification for the shooting. And we're going to get these people who say, "Oh, they could have shot him, shot the gun out of his hand." That's television. That's not reality. So I think we have to pay attention to all of those things. And I agree with you, Pat, that we shouldn't have a knee-jerk reaction.
CR Patrick, Generation X, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. Folks, all of these situations, we've seen a lot of them across the country. And the way a really good professional police departments work is that they have a good deputy commissioner of public information office, and they get the information out there so that it will dispel the rumors, misinformation. Sometimes the press pours gasoline on all fires. So put those fires out before they start them and get the correct information out there from the police department. And right now, we're not seeing Minneapolis putting out a lot of information. So a lot of the information we're getting is from the press, which may or may not be correct. Probably most likely is not correct.
You're getting the information from the press, and you're getting the information from Amir's attorneys, from the family's attorneys, and obviously they're gonna put their own slant on it. But it was. I think DCPI, they should learn. Our DCPI is pretty good in New York. They get on it. They get on it, and they get the information out to the public as soon as possible. Because right now it's all speculation. That's why I really don't even want to comment on the situation, because I hate to speculate when somebody got killed, and I hate to be wrong.
Absolutely, Pat. And, there's another part of it. You got these radical groups like Black Lives Matter. They're going to throw gasoline onto the fire too.
And
for their own agenda, they're going to.
I'm believing that they're nuded right now with all their problems they have going on, because it's really not getting, and I'm happy about that, the national press. That
well, I think, Pat, that you're right. They were nude a little bit. They have some financial problems that have come to light, but they may try to jump onto something like this to take the spotlight off of that. And I just think that, listen, there's clear video of the gun being in the kid's hand. And I think that's probably why you can't get too much steam in the wrong direction. And listen, again, you made a great point. We don't know enough about it to really say one way or the other. But I mean, when you see the entry in that 9 or 10 seconds and you see the gun in the kid's hand, we don't know what happens next, but there's going to be an investigation. We're going to probably get all of the details of it, and we really can't say 100% certainty. Like there's people on the news, they're saying, "Oh, he had a full carry permit." We don't know it to be fact. So again, we have to wait till all of those facts are released. But they really should. I mean, they've had this happen in their city before. They really should be calling for calm until the investigation is completed, or at least a couple of days down the line. Let's get some of the facts, all the interviews done, and we can put it all together and come out with a clearer picture of what took place.
Minutes before Minnesota law says no-knock warrants can be conducted unless a judge agrees that a nighttime search is necessary to prevent the loss, destruction, or removal of objects, or to protect the searchers or the public. Under the law, police have to justify a no-knock warrant, and 2 high-ranking police officials need to sign off on the application. Search warrants are under seal, meaning all questions will stay unanswered for now. At the Capitol, lawmakers passed the no-knock law last summer after intense negotiations. House Democrats initially tried to ban no-knock warrants, except in first-degree murder cases, hostage-taking, kidnapping, terrorism, or human trafficking, but police opposed those limits. At a committee hearing last March, St. Cloud Chief Blair Anderson said they would hurt police investigations, and he said the use of no-knock warrants is judicious.
I am opposed to this bill because it is dangerous, and it is going to create an exponentially higher level of danger in an already inherently dangerous profession.
In his first comments since Locke's killing, Governor Tim Walz today called on lawmakers to make more changes to Minnesota's no-knock warrant law. He did not say what changes he specifically wanted. House Speaker Melissa Hortman, a Democrat, said lawmakers need more information to know whether the Minneapolis raid followed state no-knock warrant law. Karen?
So there you have it. That's some of the history of it in Minneapolis. But
I'm going to give you an example how, and I'm sure the statute of limitations are up that I can't get in trouble at this point, on just using your brain to do a search warrant, and Chief Anamona, I know he's a big fan. He watches, and I was working for him at the time. We would sometimes do a search warrant, and like I said, I didn't like, and I'm going to piss off Jack Cambria and a lot of my emergency service buddies, but I wish that we were trained to do the search warrants on our own, only because you did it, you own it, now you do it. Because when we had to bring emergency service in, we knew intimately as that neighborhood cop, we knew the subject locations we were going into. And a lot of the spots was a mother, and she had bad kids that went bad, that were dealing drugs out of the apartment. And we knew it wasn't appropriate to go and throw a flash bang into the location, and we knew how to get in there. We would, and I tell you a couple of times, we were mandated by the rules to use emergency service to execute the search warrant. But I had a common sense CO at the time, and I went through the whole scenario of what we were going to do, and we just used our brain. We went there with flowers, like we were making a delivery to the mother, and we had a backup team. As soon as she opened the door, man, we got a search warrant for your house, and we went. We recovered all the drugs. We locked up the kids. Just use your brain to do things. There are times when you can do that. In circumstances where you don't know the situation, then safety's got to play a role. And there are circumstances when you know that there's bad guys in there. They're gang members. They're involved with shootings. They're running guns out of the place. Obviously, you're not going to deliver flowers to the location. You're going to execute it with emergency service.
This is the body cam video.
Right. This is going in with a key.
Yeah, it shows that they have a key to the apartment, which is always that would be the choice for most, rather than to have to break the locks and boom the door.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure you do that.
So
the managing agent may have had a key. They may have contacted.
I'm sure that's good police work. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, right. And that's good tactics, because you don't have to stop banging on the door, knock it down. Again, if you had to do that, you're sort of giving some kind of warning that the police are coming in. This was actually best case scenario where they had the key and they were going in, so they didn't have to knock down the door.
All right, let's play it right now.
Amir Locke reportedly wasn't listed on the no-knock warrant, but was killed seconds after police entered the home after officers found him holding a gun. Has some wondering if something like this could happen here at home. WCNC Charlotte's Lana Harris joins us live with where the practice stands here in the Carolinas. Lana?
Yes, so you may remember these so-called no-knock warrants were thrust into the headlines with Breonna Taylor's death a few years ago in Louisville, Kentucky. People were horrified at the thought of police potentially entering the wrong home and killing an innocent person.
In the event of a no-knock warrant, we will all, I think, pray.
Once again, the practice of no-knock warrants are facing widespread criticism. Body cam footage shows 22-year-old Amir Locke had less than 10 seconds after Minnesota officers entered the apartment without knocking before he was fatally shot. Charlotte NAACP President Corin Mack says that could have been anyone.
I think most people don't know what to do because you have no authority. They're in full authority. There is so many ways things can go bad.
Attorney Tyler Bailey says there are reasons jurisdictions believe a no-knock warrant is necessary.
They're typically used in high-risk situations where the law enforcement believes that somebody's going to either get rid of some evidence or their life or somebody's life may be in jeopardy if they notify the person in the dwelling that they're the police.
Bailey says the problem is the process isn't perfect.
Warrants are handled sometimes they're rushed. If you go to the wrong address and a no-knock warrant, that's a recipe for disaster.
Bailey says he believes there are incidents where a no-knock warrant could be necessary.
But I think it needs to be a very, very high standard if they're going to allow that. Let's say there was a kidnapping situation or a terrorist hostage situation. In a situation like that, okay, and you know exactly where they are, it makes sense for a no-knock warrant.
No-knock warrants are currently allowed in North Carolina, though some jurisdictions like CMPD have banned its use. In South Carolina, a moratorium on the practice is in place until judges are given better criteria on when they should be issued.
It's something.
Well, you could see other jurisdictions have their own laws, their own rules as to when they could be used. An attorney there was very articulate in talking about why and how they're issued, and there's a high level of a high bar to get a no-knock warrant, as there should be.
It should be, absolutely.
The threshold that needs to be met is high. I know in New York City it is, and a lot of the judges that are liberal, they really gave us a hard time when we did apply for them. And if they granted, it's usually based on a lot of good evidence and a confidential informant and stuff like that. But Bill, I want to make one quick point too. You know, when I did some research on this, a lot of the stories that they came up, they immediately said that the victim in this case that was killed was black and the officer was white, and they right away went to race. Now, it doesn't matter in my mind whether the person is black, brown, white. It really doesn't matter. It's a tragic situation. The ethnicity of the person that dies in a situation like this, really, I don't think, and I think you guys will both agree with me, that police officer Mark Hanneman went out and said, I'm going to kill somebody today. That's not what went through his mind. He was placed into a very dangerous situation. It was a split-second decision. We're going to find out all of the facts, but right away the media is trying. Almost every story that I read on the internet immediately put, threw in there that he was black and that the officer was white. And they may not even be right on whether the officer is white. We see a picture of him, so he's obviously African-American, but we don't know what the officer is. There's no picture of him as of yet. So I think that they try to throw that in there. That inflames tensions. It's unnecessary, and it really shouldn't matter. No one should die at the hands of the police unless their actions cause a situation where deadly physical force could be used against them. So I hate when they throw the race card right into the whole equation.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, so do I. It's a divide situation that I'm not sure what they get out of it, but they seem like they want to divide this country by race. And I told you, I was speaking to the kids in the gym, and what they said was, Pat, you don't understand. When you're in where we live, you have more of a fear of home invasions, people kicking in your door and pretending to be the police. And that's what they're afraid of. So he was of the mindset that just do away with them. But then I kind of changed his mind when I said, do you understand? Because there were apartments in the Park Hill houses that were cancerous, that destroyed the Park Hill houses. And once we were allowed to execute search warrants, we were able to follow through and get them evicted and work with the landlord. We gave the good people in that building. So there needs to be a median. There needs to be, you need to do search warrants. Maybe we need to do them better, but I think we do them here. If you look on a lot of NYPD social media pages, and I don't think they're getting enough credit, they're coming up with guns every day. Yeah. Every day you got guys going out there on patrol, and the FIOs, which was the program that came out of the 7-2 precinct, they're going out there every day and getting guns off the street. And Eric Adams just talked about it, I think, today. I think 400 guns they got just the beginning of the year. And those are guns, the guns that are coming off of bad guys. They're not the gun buyback program, which is a great program. I don't care what they do, as long as they get the gun off the street. But these are guns that are coming out of the hands of bad guys. But now,
imagine how many guns they could come up with, Pat, if they had stopped questioning first back and had anti-crime back.
Yes, that's the only way we're going to tackle this crime problem. And if the numbers don't scare you right now, then you're crazy. Then you're crazy. Then you live in a gated community somewhere, and you don't have to worry about it.
And you don't watch the news, apparently. The local news, right, every day. Every day there's a different shooting. I saw on the news The news earlier today, there was a kid firing shots that hit a city bus. He was shooting at two other gangbangers, and he hit a city bus. So I mean, it's every day. It's every day.
Look at the videos every day, and you know what the problem is too. They instituted into the perpetrator that you're a victim. You're a victim, and what they're doing is they're fighting now. You have a district attorney in Manhattan that says he's not going to prosecute resisting arrest. You know what? That's insane. That's insane. That puts every cop's life in danger. Not only the cop's life in danger, that puts the perp's life in danger, the person that's resisting arrest, and the people around them, because it creates a volatile situation. And we all know how difficult it is to handcuff somebody that doesn't want to be handcuffed. And you're going to tell the public that because you're creating this victimhood that you're not going to prosecute resisting arrest? I just thought that was the most egregious thing out of the many stupid things that he put into that memo, that you're not going to prosecute resisting arrest. Now, I'll tell you right now, Eric Garner will be alive today if he would have complied. If he put his hands behind his back and he complied with a lawful order to put his hands behind his back, he'd be alive today. And most of those horrific situations that tore apart our country, if they complied with the lawful order to submit to arrest, they would be alive. And then you fight it out in court, and you go get a lawyer, you sue the police department.
You know, folks, this is
that message needs to be sent.
This is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. Tomorrow night at 9 p.m., we have former Yonkers Police Commissioner Edmund Hartnett and current Nassau County Police Commissioner Patrick Ryder. They're going to be on the show, and we're going to talk about crime across cities in the U.S., the explosion of crime, partly due to the decarceral policies of DAs, bail reform, and just the out-and-out refusal to prosecute. It's keeping dangerous criminals out on the street. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow night with former Yonkers PC Edmund Hartnett and current Nassau County PC Patrick Ryder. So please tune in for a very interesting conversation tomorrow night. Guys, we've hit over an hour. Philly, I'm going to give you your last words, and then I'll give Pat his last words. Go ahead.
Last words. I just wanted to make one quick point about what he was just saying. If you comply, you don't die. And, there's just so many things that we need to talk about. And I just wish a guy like Eric Adams, again, would get that message out. Listen, I don't want to call on Al Sharpton to do anything, but some community leaders, they need to get together and they need to say exactly what you just said, Pat. Comply, fight it out in court, don't resist, and these horrible tragedies would not occur. Some of those people that were killed in police custody would be alive. They wouldn't have died that day in particular. That's 100% true. Pat, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I think it was a great conversation. I think we got a lot of good information out to our listeners, and keep up the good work. And with the kids in boxing, we always talk about how the program that you run is really, you're saving kids' lives. You're taking kids off the street. You're occupying them, keeping them out of gangs, keeping them out of trouble. It's a great thing. God bless you, Pat. And thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Phil, and thank you, Bill. And I need to give a shout out to my sergeant when I was a rookie cop, Andy McGooey. And he was the king of community policing. And he really did. He taught not only me, but you had him on before, Jack Cambria. He taught the chief of department, Kenny Corey, how to be more than cops, how to be good people that cared about the community, which made you a good cop. And it was, he just had the ability to put together a team and to mold us into really, really, really effective good cops. And a lot of that stuff that we did as the CPOP program morphed into things that were replicated throughout the city. And because this is New York City, when we dropped crime, the entire country copied what we did in the 7-2. And I just wanted to throw it out there because it's a guy that really never got the credit he deserved. Andy McGooey. Maybe you could have him on, Bill.
Absolutely. Oh, Pat, thank you so much. And thanks for suggesting this topic tonight. We were actually going to take tonight off, but you made us work tonight. And
put it on my
that,
bill.
That's okay for
the Joe Murray a shout out too. Joe Murray was a boxer. He was on the boxing team, and he is my lawyer too. He's number one.
That's great. That's great.
Good man, Joe Murray.
So, folks, thank you so much for listening tonight to Police Off the Cuff. Everyone that's our members and our Patreon, our YouTube members, thank you so much for helping us out. And have a great night and be safe.
Stay safe, everyone.
Good night.
One episode just ain't enough.